Hi, this is Savannah,
And this is Brian from the Dorky Diva Show,
and you're listening to Star Wars.
the best place for below average Star Wars.
In a world where people need 80s and 90s movie reviews, two regular Geordies combine forces to bring you the Brother to Brother 80s and 90s movie review podcast. Check them out on Twitter, YouTube, and all decent podcast vendors.
Welcome to Star Wars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
I'm Jason Hondo Ling.
And I'm Kat Risialka.
And we are back for our first episode in March, if you can believe that, at the very end of March. We obviously had a COVID case in the team and also some illnesses in the team, as well as just some very busy periods. And while March has been busy for us, it's also been very busy for Star Wars. And basically today we're going to be talking about sort of Kenobi and that Entertainment Weekly magazine cover that dropped on March the 9th. And then also, on March the 9th as well, we also had the trailer get released later on. So we'll be talking all about that. But just before we get started, we'll just do a check-in. Kat, we'll go to you first. How have you been for this entire month where we haven't recorded?
Gosh, it's been so strange not talking about Star Wars with you guys. I've almost had like sort of podcast withdrawal symptoms, and my family have been having all my fan theories instead. So I've talked their ears off, and I think they're happy that I can now be on here talking fan theories instead. I think they've had a bit of enough of me.
Well, it certainly is good to be back. Jason, how have you been? Obviously now recovered from COVID, thank God.
I'm hanging on in there. It's been a stressful month, but yeah, everything's good now. I feel a lot better. Getting back into normal sort of life. Having spent probably about 10 days pretty much sleeping and doing very little else. But yeah, looking forward to getting back into Star Wars. I did have a little bit of fun whilst I was ill in that I decided I needed to make myself feel better, so I purchased the Armourer's Armoury from Lego. So I did have a little kit to build whilst I was recovering.
Always a good excuse to get some awesome stuff in. How was the build? Was the build good?
It's a really, really fun build. The 3 figures that come with it. Obviously, you've got the Mando with his new Beskar armor. You've got Paz Vizsla and not Paz Vizsla, Pre Vizsla, isn't it? Kat, you'll correct me there.
No.
So previous that's from the Clone Wars, and then the other one's the new one.
Paz Vizsla. So it is Paz Vizsla. And obviously the Armourer, the only issue I really had with it was that the Armourer doesn't have those lovely shoulder pads that we see in the episodes. But otherwise, no, really fun build, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. Something else we all enjoyed was all of the Kenobi content we got, and that's sort of what we're going to be talking about this episode. Let's sort of dive straight in. Obviously, we know Obi Wan Kenobi is coming to Disney Plus as a limited series on May 25th. And the final print cover of AEW was revealed to be from Star Wars. I think it's the 41st cover for Star Wars, and the final cover for the magazine. And it's Hugh McGregor on the cover, sort of in not quite Jedi robes, but almost Jedi robes, wielding his lightsaber. You can see his hairline, they've started to recede it a bit. He looks a bit unkept, but they've all sort of aged him into that sort of Alec Guinness timeline. Obviously, this was what we got first before we knew the trailer was coming, was sort of this Entertainment Weekly image of the cover, and then also images from inside the magazine. What was your first take on the cover picture, Jason?
I'll be honest, it's been such a long time. That's the one thing I've got to have another look at. But all of the images that I've seen, including that cover, it harks back, like you say. It's the leading in from the Ewan McGregor to the Alec Guinness, and obviously we've got the older, hopefully maybe a bit wiser. But yeah, no, it just the character was there as you imagined him to be on the cover, and yeah, just that was the first bit that whetted the appetite for what we're all hoping is to come.
Kat, in the images inside the magazine, we also got the first image of Moses Ingram, obviously fresh from the Queen's Gambit series, as the Inquisitor Reva. Sort of a really awesome image of her crouched on a rooftop with some very fluorescent signage behind her. What were your thoughts on sort of this first look at possibly one of the main Inquisitors in this storyline?
She looks absolutely amazing as the Inquisitor. I really enjoyed her performance in the Queen's Gambit, so I'm looking forward to her in Kenobi. What I find quite interesting is that they do call her Inquisitor Reva, and she hasn't got a name like the seventh sister or the ninth sister. Neither does she have a mask. So that image makes me think that Reva isn't a fully fledged Inquisitor, and that she's going to have to do something to prove herself to sort of earn that title.
That would be really awesome. Obviously, we haven't really had much information about how the Inquisitors get their names, but maybe it's like 007 where you need 2 kills, maybe you need to achieve maybe you need to capture a Jedi, and then that proves that you're an Inquisitor, and that gives you the sort of the sister or the brother naming rights. Could be something along those lines, which I really, really do dig. I think one of the things before we get into the trailer, I think one of the things I loved about the trailer and these images was that we're going to see, maybe not a lot, but we're going to get some information on the Inquisitors and how it works, which has obviously also been dealt with in the comics, more so, and also a little bit in the Jedi Fallen Order video game. I think my favourite image in the magazine was inside that cave, where it was sort of saying that, this is where Kenobi's living at the minute. So he hasn't quite got his hut on the Dune Sea yet, but he's living in this cave. Jedi's in their caves, eh? They seem to love them. I sort of loved how the cave looks very much sort of... It's not, but to me, the cave gave me the same vibes as Inside the Tree from The Last Jedi. Like that type of vibe of ancient, and is it strong with the Force? And you see Kenobi sort of sitting there where he's obviously got like a little bed set up, sort of living the life of almost a homeless man. And I wonder if this is where we're going to see the likes of maybe, I don't know, Qui-Gon Jinn coming to speak to him, or Yoda coming to speak to him through the Force, maybe. What were your thoughts on the cave picture, Jason?
Yeah, again, it's like you say, it's the whole thing of we're at this transition stage. Obviously, we know that Obi-Wan is supposed to be going on this journey where he's going to learn more about being a Jedi, and obviously, he and Yoda are obviously going to be able to communicate some way, because we know that they're both around at this time period. I am holding out hope that Liam Neeson's coming back into this to do the Force Ghost, because obviously it makes sense from a story point of view, because Yoda had told Obi-Wan that this was how he was going to learn about the Force Ghosts, at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So, yeah, as it goes, it's just this whole transition period. But like you say, it's not quite the Obi-Wan that we saw at the beginning of A New Hope, but it's out in the desert, and hopefully we're going to see his journey to where we find Alec Guinness.
Definitely. Well, I'm excited for. I'm hoping to see his journey from sort of living in squalor to having no hope to sort of then actually getting a bit hope, setting up his hut and starting to write those journals that we see so much of in the comic series. I think one of the best images for me as well was Kenobi with the Eobi, and obviously we get the Eobi in the trailer. Thank God Star Wars was keeping the creatures the same. I think one of the things they missed in Rise of Skywalker at the end was that woman, and at the end on Tatooine, and it like was a different creature than an Eobi. It's like just use what we know from the area. It makes more sense to do that, and it makes it feel more real to us. So I'm glad that this series. One thing I'll say is that these images and the whole trailer to me screamed prequel nostalgia in a really good way. People. I think Dua Lipa has been touring feature nostalgia for like 3 years now, especially with the pandemic. But guess what? Prequel nostalgia is coming, so get ready to move over. We get another couple of images as well. Kenobi in the hood, looking very Kenobi-like, which is again replicated in the trailer. And we also get one of Moses Ingram's Reva right in the face of Uncle Owen, played by Joel Edgerton. She's looking very stern, and sort of he's looking stern but trying to sort of look past her, I think, as if trying not to draw attention to himself too much. Any other comments on the Entertainment Weekly sort of write up and pictures before we move into the trailer?
Oh, I just love the EOP as well, because that also gave me sort of the Book of Boba Fett vibes of, we went from one Boba and his Bantha, and now we've got one Obi-Wan and his EOP. And I'm loving how Star Wars at the moment is taking all these really iconic characters and just giving them these lovable animal sidekicks.
It certainly is good. Jason, you got any final thoughts on the Entertainment Weekly cover?
No, again, just all of the different vibes that are coming off of it, and I think it just perfectly sets up for what we then see in the trailer, and what we've all been dying to see. I think this is the trailer that we all thought was never going to come.
I think the trailer came out. These images were released out the blue, so it was sort of like excitement, hysteria, and then a couple of hours later, they sort of dropped the trailer on us, and that was sort of that same feeling but tenfold over. Kat, let's go to you. Sort of the trailer drops. What were you doing, and then were you able to watch it straight away, or did you have to wait till you got home from studies?
No, I was home. I think I'm pretty sure I was actually just studying. So I just had like my textbooks open in front of me, and suddenly my phone blows up, and I'm wondering what's going on, as usual. And I see that everybody's talking about the Kenobi trailer, so I go straight onto YouTube. Just push my textbooks out to the side because Star Wars is more important, and immediately just put the sound on full and was just blown away by this completely surprise reveal of the trailer. And it delivered on everything, and I was completely there for all the prequel vibes.
Jason, were you able to watch it straight away? Were you, or were you have to catch it later?
I think I was a couple of hours behind. I don't know what I was doing, but I know I didn't manage to catch it straight away, so I was sort of avoiding everyone. I know it went out on the Jedi News WhatsApp. Don't say a word till we've all seen it. And I think we were all amazed that Kat was actually one of the first ones to see it, because normally she's deep in study and pops up with, what's going on? So...
I know. I feel like that song, that really famous song, screaming at the top of my lungs, what's going on?
But no, it was when I did get to see it, like you say, it delivered on everything that we hoped. it held back as well on a couple of things that I was half expecting to see.
Yeah, I think I was at work when the images dropped, so I managed to check what was that when the trailer dropped. I was at work with a couple of hours left, so I managed to watch it a couple of times at work, and then I had to get back to work. Now I was able to sort of, when I got in, watch it on the telly, on the YouTube app, thank God, which I think is the best place to watch it. Let's sort of dive in. Sort of, Kat, take it away with the first points you want to discuss about the trailer.
I love how the trailer opens almost how we left Obi-Wan at the finale of Revenge of the Sith. We've got the desert plains of Tatooine, and he's on his AOP, and we can see he's a bit more wearier and sand-blown than how he was at the end of Revenge of the Sith. But it's still the same Obi-Wan, and you get all that nostalgia, plus this sort of gorgeous little. There's this little musical intro that almost reminds. I think it is very similar to how Obi-Wan was introduced in A New Hope. I think it's just the sound has been altered ever so slightly, but it's that same. It's that same set of notes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
you're
think
right
the-
there, Kat.
It's that moment when Alec Guinness pulls down his head, his head, sorry, his hood to reveal Obi-Wan, and it's that exact same set of notes. Which, if I was musically oriented, I could probably say what it was, but I'm not. But Star Wars fans know what I'm talking about. And then we get this brilliant look at. I think it could be Anchorhead because it looks too big for Mos Eisley, but too small for Mos Espa. And I think Obi-Wan looks to become sort of this simple labourer.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it looked like. It's
I was
certainly
almost getting blacksmith vibes when you see him sort of with the people walking past the shot, and he's in the background working on something on the workbench. I was almost getting like blacksmith vibes from him.
Yeah, I couldn't exactly tell what he was making, but it immediately made me think of that the Clone Wars arc, Slaves of the Republic, where Obi-Wan is captured by the Zagirians, and they force him to work, but he just sort of gets on with it without complaint, even though he's there against his will. And it reminded me of that in the sense that Obi-Wan doesn't mind, sort of roughing it, but he still keeps his pride.
the thing we've seen in the Clone Wars as well is Obi-Wan adapts to a situation, and we've seen him several times go undercover, so to speak, and obviously at this point we know that the only way he can survive is by convincing everyone he's not a Jedi, and this is what I think, as you say, it's also it shows us a sort of almost hopeless looking. He looks very dejected, and it's almost like C-3PO. This is our lot in life, but it's a different Obi-Wan, but it's still, like you say, it's still the Obi-Wan that we know. But the tone leading to the opening sequence that we'll be getting to in a minute is the bit where there is this hopelessness, which is something that obviously fits perfectly with what leads into A New Hope.
Yeah, and there's also sort of this sense of mundanity in that Obi-Wan has gone from this general, this Jedi warrior, a Jedi master, and now he's, going through the everyday motions of just trying to eke out a living on Tatooine. And you're right, there is definitely sort of this sense of mundanity, hopelessness, and sort of, you can't not feel dejected because, I mean, Obi-Wan has literally lost everything he knows.
Yeah, I think one of the things I felt as well was when we see the Inquisitors turn up, being all sort of forceful and thinking of the bee's knees and the best. I'm thinking this isn't sort of a Jedi Padawan on the run, a youngling on the run. What these Inquisitors giving it the big licks, but like I can't wait for Kenobi to turn it on. And go, no, actually, I'm General of the Grand Army of the Republic, and Reva, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're not becoming an Inquisitor because you're gonna die. Because none of them are no match for Obi Wan Kenobi. What were your thoughts on sort of Uncle Owen in this trailer, Kat?
It's so great to have Uncle Owen back, because he only got sort of this really brief parts in both the prequels and the original trilogy. But this is the man who raised Luke, and who raised Luke into what would become a Jedi. So Owen did a pretty decent job, even if he was strict with Luke. I think seeing this side of Owen, we're probably going to see this nurturing side where he does nurture Luke, but also this fierce protectiveness, and which we haven't really seen outside of the comics, some of the Star Wars and Darth Vader comics. So I'm excited because he is very much an underused character.
Yeah, he's definitely underused, and I think Joel Edgerton at the time sort of was, certainly wasn't at the acting prowess he is now. I think that's one of the things that Deborah Chow's hinted at. Thank God for George Lucas for casting Joel Edgerton as Uncle Owen, and sort of laughed about it, but also, he has gone on to become a fantastic actor and sort of everything he does. And I think it's great that we managed to attract him back to this role. Jason, are you excited to have Joel Edgerton back as Uncle Owen?
Yeah, definitely. And I think from the trailer, the pieces that we see of him in the trailer clearly point to he's got quite a bit to play in this story. And there's a scene where it looks like, obviously, the Inquisitors have turned up, I would assume, on Tatooine, where because I can't imagine Uncle Owen's ever left Tatooine. And we see this whole sequence where he stood there, and it looks like he's watching an execution, which obviously brings all of a sudden. There is one issue, because obviously in A New Hope, Uncle Owen Tatooine almost seems to have escaped, some of the nastiness of the war, because it's more of a rural sort of setting. But it seems here very much the Empire is a big presence here on Tatooine, and obviously I think he's going to be trying to protect Luke from that. And I did the sequence where the Inquisitor Raver seems to be stopping someone from running away, and it was that actually Uncle Owen that she was stopping?
I think it's edited in a way to make you think it is, so it could be, but also it's a trailer, so it might not be, if that makes sense.
But no, overall, like you say, he's proven his acting chops over the years, and it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, we're going to see the character used and see a different side to this character that we haven't seen on film so far.
Definitely. I think. Do you think the Inquisitors come to Tatooine because someone tells them Kenobi's there, or do you think Kenobi goes off-world to this other planet that we've seen, and then they track him back to Tatooine?
This is really interesting, because I've been looking at this trailer again and again, trying to figure it out, because there's a certain scene where Reva is confronting somebody in an alleyway, and that person is clearly holding a blaster. Now we know Obi-Wan's feelings on blasters, that they're an uncivilized weapon, and I get the sense that they're not initially hunting Obi-Wan. I think they're hunting a different Jedi. The planet that we see, the other planet, is called Dayu, and that translates from Chinese to black jade. It's inspired by Deborah Chow's Chinese heritage and sort of the streets of Hong Kong. And it seems that there's a lot of action going on there. We see the fifth brother, the Grand Inquisitor. So I wonder if that's sort of where they begin their search for a Jedi, and that either leads them to Tatooine, or Obi-Wan maybe gets some kind of message for help.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Inquisitors in the Inquisitor's presence. I think we see Grand Inquisitor, we see Fifth Brother, we see this new Inquisitor, Reva. We also see another Inquisitor with like horns on her cheeks. I'm not quite sure who that one is. Sort of walking in the sand, I think. We also see the Fortress Inquisitors. Just talk us through everything that you spotted and was sort of going crazy about Inquisitor-wise, Kat, in the trailer.
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, anybody who's played Jedi Fallen Order will immediately recognize Fortress Inquisitorius, that tower that looks very much like Vader's castle, which is... Which planet is that on now? Oh, Nur, which is a moon. And while we did explore some of that in the game, the conference room is new. But I mean, the Empire loves conference rooms. They don't do anything via email, by the looks of it. And yeah, so there we see Reva, the fifth brother, who fans should recognize from Star Wars Rebels. And yeah, there is this other new Inquisitor. I took a look at her and I did wonder if she was a Fallopian. The head, tails, horns look somewhat similar, but she's another new Inquisitor.
Yeah. How many Inquisitors had we seen before this trailer, like in other mediums, do you know, in the comics and in the video games?
Ooh, that is a good question. Let me just try and tell you that. Well, I think it's about 8 different Inquisitors.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there's quite a few pop up in the comic books, don't they, Kat?
I know. I would have to Google it because I can't think of them all off the top of my head. But we have the fifth brother. I think it's the ninth brother as well in Rebels. The seventh sister, the ninth sister, the fifth sister, the Grand Inquisitor. I'm sure there's at least 3 more.
It's going to be good to see, like, actually go to Fortress Inquisitors and sort of see the setup. That conference room looks really sort of evil, and the chair that's empty is possibly Vader's chair because it looks very similar style to Vader's castle on Mustafar.
It does. I just love all the symbolism there, to Vader's castle, to sort of the imperial aesthetic that we know so well. And it does match what we've seen in Jedi Fallen Order really well.
Jason, what were your thoughts on the Inquisitors and sort of us getting, they're sort of the main, apart from Kenobi, they're the main part of the trailer. We get to see a lot of them in different scenes. You also get a voiceover from the Grand Inquisitor sort of telling us the secrets to hunting Jedi, which was quite chilling. All you have to do is wait for the Jedi to essentially try and be a good guy, because that's what they'll try and help someone in need. They can't not do it. And then when that happens, we'll catch them. Sort of very sinister. Sort of, what were your thoughts on how they were presented here?
Yeah, the first thing I've got to say that we haven't mentioned yet is obviously where we lead into the footage of the Inquisitors. So we've gone from the introduction of Obi-Wan, and then there's that introduction where the music changed to something that was very, very familiar and very, very dark in the Duel of the Fates. And it was great to hear that music back in Star Wars. And obviously, it's mainly associated with Darth Maul and the battle with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi Wan. But at the same time, I felt that this really showed the transition then from the Obi Wan to again the Sith and the Grand and the Inquisitors. Um, the footage of the Inquisitors was great. Seeing the different, the different types that we're seeing, seeing the shuttle heading or the ship heading to the tower. It was just, to me, it was all, yeah, this is where we want to see these hunters going after the Jedi. I don't think that I agree with pretty much what you've all said. I don't think they're initially hunting Obi-Wan. And I think possibly it's going to be that either the Jedi that they are hunting inadvertently leads them to Obi-Wan, or that, like you say, he may be called upon to help. But the footage, seeing, I know we've discussed this and it's gone mad on the internet. I'm going to hold out on the Grand Inquisitor because I'm a fan of Jason Isaacs and the character from the Rebels. So I would have loved to have seen him play this character. But like with everything in Star Wars, different actors portray different characters in live action. And the guy, I can't remember the guy who's playing the Grand Inquisitor, but the stuff I've seen in him before, he is a brilliant actor. And I know he can play chilling. So that's one thing I am looking forward to, is seeing that character develop and, learning a bit more about what the Inquisitors are. The character of, is it Rava? She she definitely looks like something that's someone who's got something to prove. And she looks like she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing how that character develops. And obviously, she's clearly willing to instill fear into the hearts of people, by the looks of what she's doing on this trailer footage, in particular on Tatooine. So yeah, the Inquisitors definitely, and obviously by highlighting the Inquisitors, Lucasfilm and Deborah Chow with this trailer very cleverly neglected the one person that everyone's looking forward to seeing return. And I think by keeping the footage of Darth Vader out of the trailer was a very, very clever thing to do.
Yeah, I think it was very clever. I think what we got was essentially, and you blink and you'll miss it, is that when the Obi Wan Kenobi title comes up at the end, we get a Vader inhale, but not an exhale. So it's not even a full Vader breath that we're famous with. It's just one half of the breath. Sort of very subtly put in there. And then obviously AEW then released another picture of sort of Vader. Again, not a close-up picture, him sort of in the background looking ominous. Sort of Hayden Christensen in the suit is what they reported it as. So sort of released an image the next day. But again, not giving too much away. Which I don't think is perfect marketing. We're going to get more trailers, probably at least another one, I think, before May 25th. So, I'd imagine that we're going to maybe see some of Darth Vader there. Do you think it's going to be more Vader interacting with the Inquisitors, or more Vader interacting with Obi-Wan himself?
I think it's going to be with the Inquisitors to begin with. I think they're going to hold back the footage of Obi-Wan and Darth Vader for the actual episodes. I think that's going to be kept well under wraps. I think you're right. I think if the next trailer comes out, it might highlight the character of Darth Vader more. But I don't think it will. They're not going to ruin the return, those two characters coming together again. before the actual episode.
I
Yeah.
mean, we know that the Inquisitors directly report to Darth Vader. So I think if we're going to see the character, we're definitely going to see him probably at Fortress Inquisitorius, giving the Inquisitors their missions. From what we've seen of the Inquisitors, they have a lot to prove to Vader. There's no chance of failure for an Inquisitor. We remember what happened. What happened to the Grand Inquisitor. He would rather face the flames on Kanan Jarrus than face Vader's wrath. And for those who have played Jedi Fallen Order, we all know what happens to the ninth sister. So I think, yeah, if we're going to see Darth Vader in a trailer, it's going to be with the Inquisitors, and any scene between him and Obi-Wan is going to be kept for some kind of season finale.
We're just getting the 4 episodes, isn't it? Is that right?
I thought it was 6.
Yeah, I thought it was 6.
Well, I hope it is. Fingers crossed it's 6.
They keep getting shorter though.
Yeah, I hope it's not 4. But I've heard. I don't know where I've heard 4 from, but I've heard 4 somewhere.
R2 was supposed to be going up, not down.
Yeah, definitely. I sort of love the use of sort of again prequel nostalgia. You know, we had the Eobi in there, sort of Tatooine. It's looking very much like prequel Tatooine. The use of Duel of the Fates, and then also Battle of the Heroes. So sort of the song that's most infamous for the first episode of the prequels, and then the song that's most famous for the finale of the prequels. Sort of both remnant in this trailer. Was really good. I'm glad we didn't see Obi Wan ignite the lightsaber or see any lightsabers from his point of view. I think let's save those for later. I did like them showing us the Inquisitor lightsaber ignited and spinning. I think again it's added more to sort of the fear that these Inquisitors are going to put onto the townsfolk of Tatooine or wherever else they may go.
Was it me, or did Reva not have like a typical Inquisitor's blade? I didn't think it had that spinning function.
Yeah, I think you might be right there, Kat.
It looked just like almost like a normal lightsaber hilt, and it didn't have any of the rings around it to produce a spinning action, which again makes me think that she's not a fully fledged Inquisitor.
Yeah, maybe you get that once you prove yourself. Obviously, Grand Inquisitor, returning character from Star Wars Rebels. I think he's played by Rupert Friend, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Obviously, Jason Isaacs voiced the character in the series Star Wars Rebels. Obviously, nothing's been said about whether Jason Isaacs turned the role down, whether he was asked to do it and he just wasn't available, maybe he was double booked, or whether they just didn't inquire about him at all. And it could be any one of those reasons. I think Lucasfilm's shown how they handled the Ashley Eckstein Ahsoka, where they didn't even tell her what was going on, which I've voiced my opinion of saying, even if you're not going to go with her or give her a chance, then still like let her know like what's going on, so when she does get asked and she's not getting bombarded with messages, which is what happened. Sort of not very good for the anxiety at all. So obviously, I like to think they would learn the lesson from that and be like, we need to be upfront with people. Obviously, Grand Inquisitor is nowhere near as loved as Ahsoka. But no, so we don't know. I imagine it'll be Jason Isaacs when he gets asked at some point in the future about whether he turned it down, whether he wasn't told, or whether it was just a case of he was already signed to another project and was unable to get out of it. If he's contracted, he's contracted. Time will tell. Obviously, this Inquisitor looks different from the animation. As we've seen Ahsoka in animation. She has longer Lekkus. She has shorter Lekkus in Mandalorian, mainly because it's easier to shoot. I think they don't get in the way as much as in fight scenes when they're actually physical pieces of the set. Cad Bane, although looked very much like Cad Bane, looked a little bit different than the Cad Bane animation. I think obviously Jason's already hinted at it. this Grand Inquisitor looks more than a little bit different, you could say. I think for me, I'm going to wait till final product till we'll see sort of how he comes across and how it looks on screen. Sort of what were your thoughts, Kat, on sort of the Grand Inquisitor having sort of a fatter head rather than a longer head?
Oh, this was the only part of the trailer that really frustrated me. I loved absolutely every moment, and then the Grand Inquisitor came on, and I was just, it's just so frustrating because the Utapauans were introduced in Revenge of the Sith, and that was, that was makeup when Obi Wan speaks to the lead Utapauan. That wasn't CGI, which was, which was quite unusual for the prequels. And yeah, to see this much more human-looking Grand Inquisitor in live action rather than the Utapauan we see in Rebels, it was disappointing because he does look significantly different. The head isn't as long. The like the stripes down the face aren't as noticeable. All I can hope is that there's a reason, and that reason is the fact that the Grand Inquisitor is going to be involved in stunt work and action sequences that require, the actor and the stunt double to be in lighter makeup. If that's the reason, I'm okay with that. But if that doesn't happen, then I'm going to be really disappointed by his appearance.
Yeah, it is quite a strange one. I think, and it's quite different because, I mean, I'm sort of very engaged in Star Wars, from books to animation to TV series to the movies. And the first couple of times I watched it, like, I didn't click on that he was the Grand Inquisitor. I clicked on he was an Inquisitor, but it wasn't until like I watched like later on the bigger telly, I was like, oh, hang on, is that meant to be Grand Inquisitor? And then obviously saw all the chatter online. Yes, it is. And then watch it with subtitles, I think, where he's down as Grand Inquisitor on the subtitles. But I think up until that point, I sort of, the first few times, I certainly wasn't immediately going, that's Grand Inquisitor. So when I watched it the first time, I was like, oh, that's an Eobi. I was like, oh, Jewel of the Fates. Oh, Uncle Owen. Like, all the things I saw, oh, Inquisitors. Everything I saw, I was sort of, that I recognised, I was sort of shouting out. But I never went Grand Inquisitor. And it wasn't until later on. So, there's definitely a different look there, which, I think does happen when you go from animation to live action. I think this one does look more different than the ones we've seen in the past. I wonder if they'll do a Sonic the Hedgehog or a Oscar Isaac in X-Men Apocalypse, where they're going to go back and change the visual effects in post before the movie comes out because of bad trailer reaction. I mean, I haven't got long to do it because it's only a month and a half away, but maybe that's a solution. I think for me though, like, even if it doesn't look quite right, I think as long as the story's brilliant and the writing's good, and the performances are good, I can look past that difference in imagery. But it does beg the question that we've seen the species in live action before, as you pointed out, Kat. So they've sort of got the base mark there for it, and I'd hope the only reason you would go away from it was for a creative decision or a practical decision rather than just a lazy decision, if that makes sense. Jason, what was your thoughts on sort of what we saw of sort of Obi-Wan sort of almost looking to sort of keep out of things while almost being in the very much the middle of things?
Yeah, it's something that I think we're gonna see. Obi-Wan, I think, is going to get dragged into this unwillingly almost. I think he's got his mission of keeping out of the way, keeping an eye on young Luke, and also, as I've said, almost continuing his studies. So I do think he's going to be dragged into it, which it's a different from what we've seen, obviously, of Obi-Wan in the past. It's a different type of Obi-Wan. But I think because of the necessity of the story, it fits his character that he'd take bigger responsibility. So he's going to try and keep out of this as much as he can because he doesn't want to risk Luke. So whereas obviously in the past you probably see him rushing in to save the day, I think he's going to be torn because obviously he doesn't want to draw attention to himself. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And obviously these Inquisitors certainly look like they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
We see that so much actually in the Star Wars comics that do focus on Obi-Wan around this timeline of how much he struggles not being a Jedi. So, he sees these daily occurrences on Tatooine where he could intervene. He could do a mind trick. He could help. He could, stop a local squabble. But he always has to balance helping with his duty to protect Luke. And that is that inner struggle all the time of you're trying to suppress your nature. And the Grand Inquisitor in the voiceover is right. He said it's like an itch, and it's just something that the Jedi can't ignore. I mean, we see it with Kanan in Rebels. He can't stop being a Jedi no matter how much he tries, and the same goes for Obi-Wan. So that inner struggle is definitely going to be part, I think, of Obi-Wan's journey.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think the trailer sort of didn't show us much when you break it down, but gave us sort of a lot of feels and a lot of emotions by being really simple, if that makes sense. Is there anything that we haven't spoke about, Kat, that you've got in your notes that you want to discuss?
We haven't discussed sort of Obi-Wan's voiceover of this trailer. He says, "The fight is done. We lost." Do you think he's talking to somebody?
Possibly. For me, I thought the voiceover matched, like, say if you've got an audience who've just seen Revenge of the Sith, it's like you've seen the fight, you've saw that they got beat, and this is where he is now, sort of setting the scene, almost like ironclad. Like, this is where we are. You can't be confused. This is where we are. So I don't know who he would be speaking to, unless it is the likes of Yoda or Qui-Gon Jinn.
I was wondering if it was Qui-Gon, because if you think about it, Qui-Gon wouldn't know how things are transpired, really. And that Obi-Wan might be talking to him. Or if it was like part of the message that he sends out to the Jedi to stay away from the temple. That was another thought I had.
Yeah, I think I would love to see that message referenced, like it is in Rebels, with sort of the holocron and the Kenobi message that they do record at the Jedi Temple. Him and Yoda, they go to great lengths to get into the temple to change that message to save as many lives as they can. And as we know, it actually saves more than you thought, because there was not quite a few, but more survivors than just the two of them, if that makes sense, because of their actions. I'm thinking it's probably more of a communication to Yoda or Qui-Gon, I think, than the transmission. But it could be the transmission, you're right. Jason, would you rather it be a transmission, or would you rather it be sort of Obi-Wan talking to Qui-Gon or Yoda?
I think it's going to be Qui-Gon or Yoda. It's going to be part of that. But again, like I said, it's very un-Obi-Wan. It's the hopelessness in it. We've lost. And that's not the sort of thing that you'd expect to hear from Obi-Wan. Which that was what struck me about that part of the voiceover. Was it was a dejected Obi-Wan, but yeah, that's what makes me think, rather than being the message, it's probably a conversation between him and Yoda or Qui-Gon. But again, it could even just be that it was a voiceover and it's not actually in the episodes.
Oh, definitely could just be voiced over for the promotion material. Another thought I had was, could it be sort of Obi-Wan monologuing? Has he already started writing his journals, and is this page one of his journal? we lost the battle.
Could be.
And this is where his journal start on Tatooine, maybe.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, certainly something that we're hoping to see more of because we know these journals exist.
I imagine one of the journal entries would be as Obi-Wan is watching Luke and he writes, "Little Luke breaks my heart today pretending to pod race in Anakin's old goggles."
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. What were your thoughts on the scene we did get of sort of Luke Skywalker?
I thought it was this sort of really, it's quite this sort of cute scene. I mean, I think Luke does look to be pretending to pod race, and those are 100% Anakin's pod racing goggles. And again, it's just that prequel nostalgia, and give me all the prequels references. And
It was either that or was he impersonating Boba Fett, pretending to ride?
yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean, because we know that Luke is obsessed with flying, so it just makes sense, and to see
Yeah.
him playing like that. It also sort of reminded me again of Rebels, because we do see him around this age, just very briefly, in
Twin Sons.
Twin Sons, yes, and
So I rewatched Rebels the other day.
yeah, Twin Sons, my favorite Rebels episode. How could I forget? And that kind of actually puts a bit of timeline on this as well, because it does look to be a similarly aged Luke.
Yeah, quite possibly. Do you think we'll see? Obviously, we didn't see it, but think we'll see Kenobi wielding both his and Anakin's lightsaber to fend off Inquisitors?
Not sure on that one. It'd be interesting to see what happens with the whole lightsaber thing, because I still think that Obi Wan Kenobi is going to be trying to hide that. But obviously, if there is this battle again with Darth Vader, then there's got to be a lightsaber. But the question is, which one's he going to use?
Yeah. I think he's gonna probably not use Anakin's. I mean, I think we've got to think how painful it must be for Obi-Wan. He's lost his Padawan and his best friend. So I think he would keep that lightsaber in a box and not think about it. And I'm not even convinced he'd keep his own lightsaber on him, because if he's searched, it immediately marks him as a Jedi.
Yeah, I think, unless Kathleen Kennedy's telling lies and being mismarketed, it's a rematch of the century. So the finale is going to be him versus Vader, lightsabers out. I think up until that point, we're not going to see him use it much, because that's how you get spotted. But I think, if there's a point where he's got like 3 or 4 Inquisitors around him, does he just unleash both of them? Maybe that's the tipping point that gets Vader on his back. And I just wonder if we see that, which would be really cool. And mention the box. I think that'll be the end of the series. Will be him in his house, in that hut that we see that overlooks Mos Eisley, and he'll put the lightsaber in the box that you later see him get it out of in A New Hope. Hopefully, just my fan casting there going on.
Fingers crossed.
Kat, is there anything on your notes that we've not addressed? I know you've got a really good set of notes, so we're going to use them as the guide.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there was so much that got me excited about this trailer and the images. I had to write it all down. No, I think we've more or less covered sort of the big parts of the trailer, and the trailer only gives us glimpses, I reckon, from a maximum of 3 of the episodes. So I think we're only getting glimpses, and if there's one thing that Star Wars series are proving right now, it's how unpredictable they are.
Yeah, definitely. For me, I think We only saw 2 locations. We saw Tatooine. Well, sorry, we saw 3 locations. We saw Tatooine, we saw that other planet, and we saw Fortress Inquisitus. So I think that could be the first 2 episodes, maybe. So I think the Fortress Inquisitus scenes will be going on when we cut away from Tatooine, if that makes sense. Sort of why the Inquisitors get sent away, they get sent to. And then maybe the second episode we see Kenobi on a different planet. So it leaves a lot of other stuff out of the trailer. Do you think we'll get another trailer before May, Jason?
I'd like to think so. I think they probably will tease something. It wouldn't surprise me if something dropped May the 4th. But May the 4th seems to be very quiet at the moment this year. Obviously, we've heard that Bad Batch has been delayed. And I don't think that's due now till next year. Obviously, Andor's not until after Obi-Wan. And then we still don't know what's happening with season 3 of Mandalorian or where Ahsoka's fitting in. So yeah, I think they're going to have to do something for May the 4th. So as they're not launching Obi-Wan on that day, I'm wondering if it's going to be a bit more of a reveal with trailers.
Has Bad Batch been confirmed to be next year now, has it?
All they've said is it's been pushed back. But looking at everything, I don't think it's going to be till next year now. I think I thought they might have squeezed it in between Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. But now it's looking more likely, because obviously after Obi-Wan, we've got Andor, which is, I think they've said September time. So which would then lead us up to Christmas. So I would say then we'd probably get Mandalorian, hopefully end of December, ready for the new year, similar to what we got with Boba Fett. So yeah, not sure what's going on with Bad Batch.
Have they said why it's been pushed?
No, not as far as I know. Have you seen anything, Kat?
When I've seen the Bad Batch, I've heard it's been pushed back to April 2023.
Is that, yeah, that could well be. But I don't know why. I presume maybe they've just run into, animation can take a while to get everything done. So, or it might be that they didn't want to, obviously with the 2 main series, this year we've had Book of Boba Fett, which realistically was this year. Obviously now we've got Obi-Wan, follow that with Andor. Do they really want to push out a 4th series, or do they want to leave that for next year to go alongside with Mandalorian season 3?
Yeah, possibly. I just hope there's no problems, because from when I was aware, it was almost nearly finished. So I just hope they're not tinkering and changing stuff. Fingers crossed. Stick with the vision. Obviously, something that has happened is we've had an official synopsis of Obi Wan Kenobi drop on Disney Plus. So it says, during the reign of the Galactic Empire, a former Jedi Master, Obi Wan Kenobi, embarks on a crucial mission. Kenobi must confront allies turned enemies and face the wrath of the Empire. So I wonder, obviously, the Grand Inquisitor, if Kenobi meets him, you'll probably definitely recognize him as the Temple Guard he used to be. Obviously, Grand Inquisitor used to be a Jedi Temple Guard. I wonder if Kenobi has a relationship with this Reva from when Reva was a Padawan.
Well, we know from Jedi Fallen Order that almost every Inquisitor was a Jedi tortured into being an Inquisitor. So there's definitely going to be history, because at one point Obi-Wan must have heard of or met some of these Inquisitors.
Definitely. Jason, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's another part of the story that hopefully is going to unravel throughout the episodes. There's so much that they, with the Inquisitors, they've got so much that they can now bring to life on the big screen, so to speak, from what we've seen through the comic books and the animated series, and obviously the computer games. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And like you say, could well be. It's the fact that they've said about obviously the Allies turned enemies. Well, the big obvious one there is Vader himself, but yeah, with the Inquisitors, there could be a lot more of those allies.
Oh, and I googled it. Currently, there are 12 Inquisitors. So if you include the 2 new ones in this trailer, that's 14.
So it's no longer the 12 days of Christmas, it's now the 14 days of Christmas. I think one last thing before we wrap it up. Obviously, Deborah Chow, speaking of, the lack of Vader in this trailer, which I think was on purpose. Obviously, we've got the half breath that we got when the title screen came up at the end. Obviously, EW dropped that image of Darth Vader and confirmed it was Hayden Christensen, sort of on an Imperial looking deck, looking very sinister, almost Empire Strikes Backish. And she sort of said that we're getting a sort of a very different type of Vader. Do you think we're going to see sort of a raw, sort of very angry Vader, or do you think it's going to be more of a controlled Vader, Jason?
It'll be interesting. I honestly don't know how they're going to play it. Obviously, we've got, for a change, we've got Anakin, the Anakin Skywalker of Star Wars, playing Vader under the helmet, so to speak. The one thing I've got to ask is, do we know if James Earl Jones is involved?
That hasn't been confirmed, but I imagine. Or has it? Do you remember when that casting list got released? Like probably over a year ago now. Was he not on there confirmed as the voice? Maybe.
I'm not sure.
I can't
I imagine
remember.
he will, because he does the voice in Rebels. I mean, he'll come and do it if he's fit and healthy enough. He'll do it.
Yeah.
I'd imagine. But yeah, I think
No.
somebody who we've not seen is obviously O'Shea Jackson Jr. was announced as in this cast. Obviously, no sign of him in this trailer. And then Camille as well, obviously from what was the Marvel movie called? I've forgotten. The last Marvel movie that came out, sort of. Where he played sort of... Say that again, sorry, Kat.
Eternals? Is that the one?
That's the one, yeah. Eternals, obviously, he's fresh off that. He's in the cast, and we obviously didn't see him either. So that's a couple of cast members who've been confirmed, but we've not seen yet. In any stuff. Kat, what type of Vader do you think we're going to see and get?
That is so hard to predict because, I mean, this is a Vader now who's given up, his free will to the Empire. This is the Vader who is hunting down the Jedi for Palpatine. So I think we're going to see a very cold, very ruthless Vader, because right now he wants to prove to the Emperor that, yes, he is no longer Anakin Skywalker. He is a Sith Lord. So, whether we're going to get this sort of very angry Vader, I'm not sure, but I definitely think we're going to see, that ruthlessness, and that's why, he's sending out the Inquisitors. He wants to stamp out every Jedi left, and he's not going to accept failure. So I think, out of the two, we're definitely probably going to see the angry Vader, possibly more, but there's going to be a lot of I think that sort of cold ruthlessness, because that is Vader right now. He's got no reason to believe that Luke is alive. He's got no reasons to question the Emperor.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
obviously he's still very much blaming Obi Wan for the loss of Padme.
Yeah, that's going to be a sore point.
Definitely. I'm interested to see how Vader reacts when he learns that there's a possibility that Kenobi's alive. I think that's going to be very exciting.
Well, that's been alluded to in Rebels.
Yep.
So
I think. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, because I know that was one thing I'd forgotten about until I rewatched Rebels. There's actually a discussion between Vader and Palpatine where he actually says about Obi Wan Kenobi and Palpatine, if he's still about, I think, or if he's still alive. But it seemed in that Vader suspected that Kenobi was.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's all from me in regards to the trailer. Kat, have you got any closing sentiments or anything that we've missed?
No, I'm really excited for May and, to see this character all over again.
And the same question to you, Jason.
Definitely just got to echo that, cannot wait to see, Ewan McGregor's waited so long to play this part again. And I know he's been dying to do it. And it's a story that I think every Star Wars fan wants to see brought to life. So I can't think of a more exciting thing to look forward to.
Definitely, it's going to be brilliant. Kat, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me at Kat Kylo on Twitter. Always happy to talk anything Star Wars or Kylo Ren.
And Jason, where can people find you on social media?
Oh, I've forgotten again. It's been such a long time. At Hondo Ling. There we go.
That's the one. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Boars Star. You can also find the podcast on Instagram and Facebook at Star Boars Podcast, and you can also find us on TikTok at Star Boars. If you listen to this podcast on Spotify, you can now give a star rating, so please give us a top rating. Helps other people find the podcast. Again, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating. Whatever it is you're listening to us on, if there's a rating system, please leave us a positive review. Again, it just helps us A, find more listeners, and B, get more guests on the show. But that's all from us. Thank you very much for joining me, guys.
Always a pleasure, Pete.
Been a blast.
Indeed. And we'll have to definitely get back together next week rather than waiting another month. Hopefully we'll all stay nice and fit.
Certainly try.
Definitely. Maybe we just all need to put ourselves in carbon freeze till next week. Then we'll be perfectly protected.
Yeah.
But no, thank you very much for listening, guys. May the force be with you all. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.
Hello, Star Wars listeners. This is Savannah Odit. You might know me as host of The Dorky Diva Show with my co-host Brian Balance. I am also producer of The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, which is a Star Wars-inspired audio drama that we produced over the last year. If you love stories about smugglers, courage, heroic characters, and maybe a few foes along the way, you should go to thedorkydivashow.com and listen to The Adventures of the Zolan Dart today.
Shout! We've got your pigs.
Were any of the critters harmed?
What did you do now?
I didn't do anything. I just freaked out for no reason.
It was nice doing business with you again. Maybe next time we could deliver something less temperamental.
Now, what you call temperamental, I call fun.
Hey, is there a place nearby where I can make some repairs?
3 clicks south of here, you'll find a small spaceport. They should have what you need, as long as it's nothing too big.
Dynamic class? My stars, you don't hear about many of those still being space-worthy.
It's been in my family for a while.
She's pretty great. Any chance you have a hover cart we can use to load up?
I'll check out the HoloNet to see if anything new has come up in the sector.
My name is Sereth Khan. I am the chief here on Kamai. My people and I have been experiencing food shortages as of late due to unforeseen natural occurrences. We are looking to hire someone.
I say we take this one. The pay is great, and it's the type of job we're familiar with.
Welcome. You must be Captain Otoa. I've already sent word to Pack 2 to expect you in the next cycle or so.
You told him we were coming before we even accepted the job. That's rather presumptuous, isn't it?
Perhaps, though once I received confirmation that you were interested and on your way here, I couldn't help but hope.
Fair enough. Well, we'll be back as soon as we can.
Well, that's not good.
Is that blaster fire I hear? So you're the one.
Captain, it sounds like they want to do this the hard way.
I love when they got some fight in them.
This is bad. This is bad. We're about to have a lot of company.
I'll see you soon.